What is going on, guys? This is EK1 from EK1 Tech, and today's video we're going to do another controller review. We have reviewed previously the Narcon Pro Compact, and again, you know, that's a great controller, but we went even further this time, and we're looking for something that's got extras added to the controller to help when we play our games or help with our gameplay as an overall. Now, we went to Gioteck and they sent out the VX4 and the WX4 wireless controllers. We're going to take a deep dive into both of them, and then I'm going to show you why these controllers for a budget-friendly option are actually really worth it. Let's get straight into today's video. So first off, let's take a look at the actual design of the controllers and compare them to their counterpart, or compare them to the layout they're meant to be. So for example, this is the WX4. So as you can see, there is a pattern on here. You can get this in all different types of colors and patterns. The links will be in the description below for these controllers, and just scroll through all of their different options. Now, the one thing you'll notice with this, it is the Xbox layout. Now, we have a standard Xbox Series S controller here, and as you can see, there's not much difference in size. Thickness, there is a slight difference when it comes to the top end here. So basically, it is a little bit thinner than normal. The one thing we do notice about this, and this is the big thing for me, this controller is extremely light. This, compared to the actual Xbox controller, there is no comparison. This does not feel like it's even in your hand. I don't know if that's because the battery life maybe not be as long as the Xbox controller itself, because I do have an external battery on the controller, but generally this does feel a lot lighter, and it also feels a little slippy in the hands, whereas of course the Xbox controller has the grip on the back. This controller unfortunately doesn't. That doesn't mean that the controller isn't worth getting, but we'll go into that in a little bit more detail later in the video. Now let's take a look at the VX4, and this is the PS layout or PlayStation layout. Now with this controller, again, if we say a PS5 controller, this is more like a PS4 controller in its design. So as you can see, it does look very similar. The buttons are all in the correct places, and that's unusual to have. Even with the Xbox controller, the buttons are all in the correct places, apart from the home button, which is a little bit lower. Now, with the Narcon controller, the buttons were all actually in different locations, and it was a little bit hard to navigate at the start until you got used to it. But for this controller, it's all in the correct place, which is absolutely amazing, and it's easy to use. Again, this one is extremely light. Now, these are both wireless controllers, and they're both charged using a micro USB cable, which comes with the controllers as well. So simple, just plug it into the end there. If it's going to zoom in for you guys. There we go. So basically, just plug it into the top as you would a normal controller, charge it up, and then connect it with the buttons on the back. Now, talking about buttons on the back, these budget controllers have triggers on the back. To me, that is something of a high-end controller, like a SCUF controller. I know it looks slightly different, and it is different to a SCUF, of course. I'm not comparing this to a SCUF controller. However, to have that functionality on a budget-friendly controller, and this comes on both controllers as well, so literally both of them have the back buttons, it's going to help you a lot, especially with like looter shooter games and games where you have to use different buttons while doing other things. So it might be a case of aiming down sight and shooting while, you know, popping a skill or a pulse, or you used to be able to do it in Division, you can't anymore, but generally that was the idea of it, to make it quick, or throw a grenade without having to actually move your hand around the controller. So for me, having those back buttons is a massive plus. Having a micro USB cable, I would have liked to have seen a USB-C cable, but for me, a cable is a cable. It's still going to charge the controller. Now, let's get straight into it, have a look at the specs, and I'll show you a little bit more detail on these controllers. So starting off with the Wx4. Now this is the premium wireless controller and it has programmable back buttons like we just showed you. Now this actually works for Nintendo Switch, PC and PS3. Now this does connect via Bluetooth, which means it is not compatible with the Xbox. Even though it does have the Xbox layout, this is not an Xbox controller. It worked seamlessly on the Nintendo Switch for me. I never had any issues at all. And I've also tried this on PC. I have not got a PS3 to try it on, but I could not get it to basically connect up to my PS5. So if you're looking for a Nintendo Switch controller or a simple PC controller, then this is definitely something worth looking at. Now, obviously the back buttons are programmable as well, and they are really easy to do. And it has LED feedback, meaning that it does feedback, you have different color lights for different functions. It has a motion and vibration support as well, but for me, I just turn vibration off on all of my controllers all of the time. Now, when we go into the Vx4, for some reason, this is for PlayStation 4, PS4 Slim, PS4 Pro, and PC. This doesn't have the capability of Nintendo Switch. I'm not sure why that is, but this also does have another feature the other controller doesn't. This has the 3.5mm audio jack at the bottom, whereas the Wx4 doesn't have this function. Now, being a Nintendo Switch controller, I would have liked to have seen some kind of audio control or something on the bottom of the controller to be able to use it. It does still have the wireless Bluetooth, programmable back buttons, it is the PS layout, and it also has the motion and vibration support as well. Now these charge really fast, they are really good and comfy to use for long periods of time. I would like it if they did have some grip on the back, rather than being that slippy material or slippy plastic, but they still do go in the hand very well. They're quite easy to set up and to personalize, and the triggers themselves are curved up in more of a gun trigger kind of design, meaning it really does fit your hand and fit your finger very well when playing shooting games. Now, I played a number of games on the Switch and on PC and also on the PlayStation with these, so I know what it feels like to switch from a normal controller to this controller. It does feel different. The Xbox controller to me felt heavier, as I said earlier in the video. The PS5 controller is a lot bigger and does fit in the hand better. But as a budget control, this really is up there. This really is up there with the likes of the Narcon Pro Compact, or it's around that kind of budget and it's around that kind of functionality where it sits on the scale. Now, this is not going to be a PS5 or Xbox controller because it's a budget-friendly option. However, PS5 and Xbox don't have those back buttons unless you get the Xbox Elite or a SCUF controller or anything like that. So those back buttons alone for me make this controller worth the buy. Don't forget, if you're interested in the controller, the links will be in the description below also. So overall, my score of these controllers, and I'm going to do it together because they're pretty much the same controller, just different layout. I'm going to score these a solid 8 out of 10. They're durable, they work well, their battery life is actually pretty surprising when it comes into it, because of the lightness or their weight of these things. I didn't think the battery was going to be great, but it lasted just as long, if not, just a little bit more than the standard Xbox batteries. Now, if you get a power pack like mine, my power pack does outlast these controllers. However, for the standard, just with batteries in, these actually lasted a little longer. So for me, definite thumbs up. Go ahead, purchase one of these controllers. Show me your pictures on Twitter. Tag me at EK1 Gaming TV or EK1 Gaming Tech. On Twitter, let me see what controller you picked up. The links will all be in the description below. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you all in the next video.